Good afternoon, YouTube viewers and subscribers. On my bench today is a rather large Saito box. Picked this up, I don't know, a week or so ago from a really awesome gentleman who lives just about 39 miles south of me. His name's Jim. And this is an engine that, you know, I've kind of wanted for a long time. Even though I really couldn't afford it, I still bought it. It is an FA-182 twin. So this box is really tattered, and believe it or not, this is a new in box engine, never seen a drop of fuel. Don't know the full history of it. All I know is that this box dates back to probably the mid-90s, so I'm thinking this is probably one of the first, and this engine was first introduced to the market in 1995, so it could have been really one of those first run engines. I don't know, but it's complete, new in box, and complete with everything except the manual, which I was actually able to print out online, so not a big deal there, and that is the original manual. So take a look at this beautiful engine. First of all, let's move this aside and let me show you all the stuff that's in the box, then I can get rid of the box. So this thing comes with this these two Y adapters so you can hook it up. Even though I probably will only be using one of them, it actually goes like this. These go to the carbs. I don't like that setup. This here is your priming line. I won't be using that because I've always believed that with a 2 carb setup, you need to have the lines going to the carbs to be the same length. But these things are nice to have. It's got the 2 exhausts, headers, just headers, gaskets for the exhaust, and the little, come in a little bit here, the tool for the front glow plug since it's a tight location. It's got the glow adapter for the twin plugs. Let's see what else is in here. Got the decals and the wrenches, screwdriver, the knobs to attach to the high-speed needles to extend those, and then some tools. That's what's in the box. Now let's get to this beautiful engine. Just check this beauty out. It says FA-182 here. It's a twin carb, stock with velocity stacks, and there's some interesting things about this engine because since it's a 182, it means it was made from 2 91 size cylinders. So this is the marriage of 2 FS91 engines. This and this engine here are the two largest glow odd fire or uneven fire twin cylinder engines that Saito ever made. And I say glow because they've got some larger gas ones, but I think they're boxer style. This is my 130T. Now the reason I got this here is because I thought this would be a good chance to actually do a side-by-side comparison with two engines that in theory should be about the same, because those of you who know Saito engines know that the FA-65, 80, and 91 all shared the same size head, and they would just bore it out for the different sizes. But these two engines, even though they have the same size head in theory, are very, very different. The 130 came out before the 182, and the 130 is the only engine that features this strange carb setup where the carbs are in the back and they're kind of angled towards each other at about a 45-degree angle, and because of that arrangement they got some really strange intake manifold tubes here. And of course it also has a bolt-on metal removable firewall mount. So whereas this is a twin carb, more like most of the other twin carbs where the carbs sit on top, and it has air bleed screws, whereas this actually had low-speed needles on the carbs. And of course, so let me just go back to this. So this is air bleed carbs, and if you notice, the high-speed needles, instead of being pointed straight up like on the 100T, are pointed off to the side. Strange. Saito went through some growing pains. I don't know if they're growing pains or just design changes throughout the course of creating twin cylinder engines, because the FA-80T and 90T, well, the 80T started out as a single carb, then they made it as a twin carb or a dual carb. 90T, I believe, was always a dual carb, and it was more this type of setup, except the high-speed needles were standing up. This, I don't know if they had some new engineer on the project or what, why they decided to go this carb route for this one engine is unknown, but it makes this engine very unique, which is kind of cool. Now, this is just one huge carb body here. Why they chose to put velocity stacks on this where they never did that with the 90T or the 80T Mark II, I don't know. But there are just some strange differences between these two engines. Now, I've got one other engine here that I want to show you, and this is just kind of a bit of history for those of you that might have some of these older single-cylinder Saito engines. If you look closely here, you can see the round area here of extra material. Well, that's there because this head could have been made as just a 65 single-cylinder engine, because they weren't in the market of making all these different heads for all these different engines. They would use as many of the same parts as possible. Likewise, you see the same thing here. A round area here that's got more material, so that if they chose to use this head, when they just made a ton of heads, and then they would just mill them out after the fact, depending on whether it was going to be a 91 or a 182. So I have an old Saito 80 here. Let me move these out of the way for a second. I've got an old Saito 80 here, and as I said before, the 65, 80, and 91s all shared the same head. So basically, they got a real bang for their buck, because they made one size head that they could modify and make fit 65, 80, 91, 130, and 182 engines. And you'll see why I'm saying that, because right here, you see that that larger material area there. So you're seeing that this head could have actually been made into a twin cylinder head, probably for either one of these engines, really, because depending on the displacement, all they would do is bore out the inside. So anytime you have an old, say, a Saito engine, any Saito engine, and if you happen to see this area here or here that's not drilled out, that's got a round area that's actually got more material there, that will kind of tell you maybe a little bit about the possible vintage of that engine, or at least of that head. It'll tell you that that head was made during a time when twin cylinder engines of that potential displacement were made, because they stopped doing that when they stopped making twin cylinder engines. Now, the 182 is still a current production engine. However, I have a Saito 91S that I took out of my box the other day, or my bin, and I was looking at it because I was looking for this area, and it actually did not have that on this side at all. All it had was the hole for the intake manifold, obviously, and it did not have this. So clearly that was a different production run head, because, or from the casting, because it didn't have that. Now that kind of is confusing to me, because the 182 is still manufactured. This is still a current production engine. You can go onto Horizon's website and still buy this engine as a not a discontinued, as a current production engine. So that's also kind of one of the cool things about this engine, is it's still a current production engine, and it is, I believe, the last glow, not gas, glow twin cylinder engine that Saito makes. I do not see the 90TS listed anymore, nor the 100T. So I believe that this is actually the final glow twin cylinder engine that Saito is still making. But I thought I would just take this opportunity to kind of share some side-by-side views, a little bit of history of these two engines. And they don't weigh the same either, and they're not dimensionally the same either. The one is a little bit longer than the other, wider than the other because of how they've got these castings made, but I thought this was kind of interesting in that the crankshaft on this, on the 130, seems longer than on the 182. Why? I have no idea. So it'll be interesting to see how I can get a prop on there. But anyway, this has been a quick look at actually two of my favorite twin cylinder engines that I own right now. Hope you learned something about Saito engines, and I hope you enjoyed taking a gander at a couple of my engines here. So thank you for watching.